On this episode of Gridiron and Growth Inside the Minds of Champions, we're going to talk to Holly Morphew, a financial coach who helps professionals and entrepreneurs create personal wealth and financial independence. You can find out more after this episode by visiting her website, financialimpact.com. She is truly a champion for the people. She will tell you great stories about how to find security financially in your life. Well, Holly, welcome to Gridiron and Growth.
Holly, welcome to the show.
Yeah, I'm so excited to be here. Let's have some fun.
Yeah, we are already.
Absolutely.
I wanted to start with this. You're a financial coach. What does that mean?
So a lot of people will ask me, Holly, what's the difference between a financial advisor and a financial coach? So financial advisor helps you invest money that you already have. A financial coach like myself helps you create more money to invest based on where you are financially right now.
Wow. Wow. And what is that like, having those types of conversations? Because you're getting people rich and, everybody's usually taking like commission on the products that they have on their platform. But what's it like to do that?
In my world, it's just real talk. And that's my favorite kind of talk. Like, let's go deep. What's really on your heart? What's really on your mind? What's really, in the back of your mind every single day, affecting your relationships, affecting your career, affecting your ability to realize your potential? Because money has a way of influencing just about every single aspect of our lives. And when I started my journey to wealth, and I've had my own journey, I became financially independent in my 30s, but I am on the wealth journey. And it started with, and I know we're going to get into this because this is where it all began for me. But back when I started on my wealth journey, there were no financial coaches. And my experience was, I grew up in a family where we talked about money at the dinner table. And so money was always a neutral topic for me. And it wasn't until I bought my first house, I was 25 years old, and it was just empowering for me. Now I had a roof over my head. I could potentially pay it off and never have a rent payment again. But then my girlfriend from Boston moved in with me. She had cheap rent. It was helping me pay my mortgage. And I'm talking to my friends about this, and I could just tell they didn't want to talk about money, or they were just massively confused about money, or had a lot of debt, or were still living with mom and dad, or, whatever. And so I had this idea. I had been a member of Rotary International for years, an international service organization. Their motto is service above self. And they did a lot of really big things for me when I was younger. Sent me to Spain, sent me to Japan, life-changing trips for me. And I really wanted to give back. And so I went to my board of trustees and I just said, hey, I have this idea for a service project. What if I go to local high schools and teach young adults about money so that when they graduate and get in the real world, they're making choices that are taking them along the wealth journey path to financial independence. And we'll talk about the difference between financial independence and retirement because they are different. Mm-hmm. Instead of making all the mistakes that I eventually made myself and I saw a lot of my friends making, and that workshop was just a total success. And it was so fun. Like, I was taking time off work to teach it, and I really found my passion, my love for speaking, my love for teaching doing that. But it wasn't until teachers and parents of my students started asking me if they could sit in on this workshop. And that was when I realized, oh my gosh, all ages are thirsty for financial education. And it wasn't until a few years later, after the recession of 2008, I had a mentor that just really encouraged me. He was like, Holly, you're meant for so much more than what you're doing at life. I had an office job and I loved that job, but I always wanted to work for myself. I always wanted to do something that I was passionate about, where I was making positive impact. And freedom is one of my core values. So in the back of my mind, I was always thinking, how do I make that life possible? How do I go from 9 to 5 to working for myself and being able to travel and all of that? And so because of my mentor's belief in me and encouragement, I started my first little company. It was called Fundamental Finance Academy.
I love that.
And I just taught personal finance alongside my full-time job until in 2016, I got a divorce. I'd been married for 10 years. And it was a major life shift for me. Like divorces, there's a lot of loss and grief and, a lot of changes that come along with that. But one of the big things for me was at that time, let's call myself a serial entrepreneur. Now, I know when people say that, it has all kinds of meaning, right? But so we had a fabrication company where we installed tanks and pipes at big breweries, from Anheuser-Busch to Odell's to New Belgium to, all the big ones. And in our agreement, he kept the business free and clear, and I kept a property that we had bought together. And then I had to rebuild my life from there. And that's when Financial Impact, my now company, was born. So that's how I became a financial coach, but that's a totally different story than my journey to creating personal wealth.
I want to stick for a second, though, with the financial coach. What's the main thing where do you start with people when they become I guess, what, are they your financial players, or how do you call them? Here's a coach.
Financial players.
So where do you start with the financial players that come to you to be coached? So where do you start? Where do you see most people making the greatest change from the smallest action?
Yes, and thank you for that question. It is such a good one. So I call my clients wealth builders or money friends. But we kick our programs off with a wealth strategy that I create for them based on their global and holistic financial picture. So I'm looking at checking accounts, savings accounts, pay stubs, any cash infusions they get from maybe side hustles that they have, insurance documents, investments that they have. And of course, I'm looking at, what are their returns on their investments. But truly, when it comes down to that, what is the one actionable step that someone can take to get from wherever you are in your wealth journey to total financial independence, which is the point when work becomes a choice because the income you're receiving from sources other than a job can pay for your expenses, is exactly the exercise that I had to do for myself back when I realized I was in major financial trouble. And that is to just look at your money. Create awareness, and because awareness is the seed of transformation, right? That's why looking at ourselves honestly and seeing like, oh, I've been blind there, like maybe I need to look at that. And then from there, you start building your pillars of wealth. And even now that, I've created even more wealth for myself and I'm financially independent, I still go back to that one exercise of it's identifying your impact number. I call it your impact number because it's the most important number in your personal finances, and it's where all wealth building begins. And all it is every 30 days, what money's going out, what money's coming in, what do I have left over, and how can I put it to its highest and best use? It's as simple as that.
Do you get people crying and stuff when they realize they spent money on
yes.
Starbucks? I didn't know I spent. That was something for me because we did this. My wife and I, we put together a budget. By the way, 90% of Americans do not have a budget, by the way. Insane amount of number. And we looked and we were spending like $25, every time we went to Starbucks. Got an espresso machine, brought it down about 29 cents. You know what I mean? So that's powerful. And you think about when people realize that, because of the power, people realize what power they have. Do you get tears? What's the reaction you get?
Well, the first reaction I get when we do the exercise of actually looking at where did your money go? Because, there's the plan, and that's the wealth strategy. And I'll share a free template where people can just grab a wealth strategy, and it has lots of auto calculations and stuff in it for you. But so the wealth strategy is your plan, but then what is actually happening? Right? Those are two very different things. And so I use a spend tracker. I use mint.com. I've used it for ages. It's continually gotten better and better over the, almost 20 years that I've been using it to see where my actual spending was. And then, at the end of the month when I'm having my money date with myself, I can look back. Yeah, yes. It's a thing, right? Like a money date with myself or a money date with your partner, whoever you're, going to financial independence with, I can look back and say, okay, this was my spend on food or shopping or entertainment or transportation or whatever. And I can get an emotional set point of, is there room for improvement there? If I was willing, because I'm a foodie. So, I can spend a ton of money on food. I love to cook and I love to eat healthy and I love really great ingredients and local and all the things. But I can look back and say, okay, I went, a couple $100 more than I could have last month. Maybe I can take that $200 and put it in an asset, which is really what we're talking about here, is starting and opening assets and then building and growing those assets.
Where do your financial players / clients, where do they usually start? Where do they come to you? Is it a couple $1 million or is it 50,000? Where do they come in? Yeah, where do they come into play for you when they want the coaching? Is it?
Yeah, so it's all ends of the spectrum. And generally, the people who I'm working with are higher earners who are, for all intents and purposes, successful in all the areas of their life, fitness, career, relationship, but they've just got this like secret that money is a challenge for them. They're either confused, overwhelmed, or ashamed of their money situation. And whether that's overspending or having a lot of debt or just not knowing like what to do with their money to make it grow, or how do I actually start investing, or should I have a financial advisor who's a financial advisor that I can actually trust? What should I be paying them? What return should I be expecting? Like, these are all the questions that people have spinning around in their head. But because for whatever reason, talking about money is taboo, a confused mind says no. And so what I've experienced is, and I've been doing this for 17 years now, is that people get into their, generally 30s, 40s, and 50s before they start to ask for help because they see that the lifestyle they're living isn't sustainable, or there is no runway to quit working one day. And the truth is that not everyone is, let's just say, lucky enough to get a job that comes with a 401k, much less an employer that matches that 401k. So we've got all these self-employed people out in the world, and, side gigs and side hustling, it's becoming more and more popular with the internet and the way we're all so connected. So people are looking for additional streams of income. And I'm a big, I have 11 streams of income.
Wow.
And creating those streams of income has been the key to me eliminating the $67,000 of credit card debt that I started my journey with.
Yeah.
Wow.
So and you talk about that journey. Let's get into that. You did this yourself. You yourself, as you mentioned, looked at your credit card statement. You were $67,000 in debt. You were not making millions of dollars at the time.
No.
How did you not just break down and, at 67,000 might be easier to go to 100 than to go to 0. You know what I'm saying?
It's like you already had one scoop of ice cream.
Yeah, where were you?
Keep ordering.
Yeah. Where were you? What were you thinking?
My God.
What made you change?
Oh my gosh. It was an epiphany. So this is back in the 2000s. I was at the beginning of my career. I worked in real estate the first 6 years of my career. Amazing career choice because I learned so much about life and people and sales and all kinds of stuff, but I had to work for it. 60 and 70-hour weeks was normal for me for all those 6 years. And during that time, before that, so in college, I was diagnosed with a chronic illness, an inflammatory bowel disease called ulcerative colitis, autoimmune disease, and it affects the gut. And so I needed medication. And the way ulcerative colitis works is you go through periods of flare and periods of health. And so I was so young, I hid it from everyone. I didn't want anyone to know. And I was pretty much in denial, even to myself. And so after I graduated from college, I went to CU Boulder. I moved to Boston with my 3 best girlfriends and got a job in real estate. And then boom, I got sick. And my medication was $5,000 a month.
Ooh.
What?
And because my parents had encouraged me to start getting credit at an early age, I had loads of credit. I had probably over 40K of just, on credit cards that I could use. And I was like, well, let's do this. It's like either I live and have credit card debt or I don't live. And at the end of the day, it's like, what's the point of all of this? Life is for living.
Right.
So 6 months of doing that, I realized this is not sustainable. Decided to move back home, live with my parents. Huge ego.
Check.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it was looking back and, after teaching personal finance and wealth building for all of these years, I'm really proud of that decision because I was able to eliminate that big line item from my budget, which was rent, and also put myself in an environment where I could really be nurtured, which I needed because if we don't have our health, it's difficult to go out and create and produce. And we know that this is a big reason why I do what I do. When we feel safe, when we feel empowered, when we feel calm, we do make better, more expansive choices for ourselves. Mm-hmm. And so for those who are struggling with, debt and confusion and I don't know how I'm ever going to quit work, that's a constricted fear-based state. And when the world has more people who are, stepping into their power and feeling safe, then the world is a better place. So, kind of fast forward a few years from there, I was $30K in debt when I came home. Then I got another great job in real estate, was healthy again, able to start working again. Then I bought the house, and then, it was like expense after expense. And I knew I had debt. I just didn't want to look at it. It was like, a lot of people just bury their head in the sand and don't look at it. That's what people do, but ignorance isn't bliss,
Right.
When it comes to money. So we had 3 back-to-back snowstorms over a week in Colorado where I live. And I drove a Honda Accord, and my office was 40 miles from my house. And, this was a sales job, and it's like a commission only. I knew I was living paycheck to paycheck, but I also knew that if I went to work that day, I'd be risking my life. And so I called my boss and I said, I just don't feel like it's safe for me to come into work today. And she said, well, if you don't come in, you're fired. And that was my moment where I realized all this success, I put it in air quotes, that I have for myself. People look at me, oh, Holly, you're so young. You've got the house and the car and the lifestyle and the job. I was not successful. That was not success for me. I had a pile of debt, and I worked all the time. I had no life. Friends would invite me, oh, let's go hike this 14er on Saturday. I'm going to be working. People just quit inviting me. So I did make it to work that day and home safely. And I was like, okay, I'm going to look at my money. I'm going to look at my balances. And that's when I got out all my credit card statements, added up my balances, saw the $67K, like cold sweats, freaking out. And then I just thought, you know what? I'm going to call my financial advisor. I know he'll be able to help me. First thing the next morning, called him up. He listened. And then he asked me, well, how much more money do you want to invest each month? And I'm like, I don't have any money to invest. This is my problem. And back then there were no financial coaches. And so I thought, well, who is going to help me bridge this gap to being able to invest more money each month? But that's not really my problem. My problem is something else, whether it's limiting beliefs about money, worthiness, impulsive spending, whatever, not looking at my money. I needed different help. And so I took the next year of my life to learn everything I could about residual income, entrepreneurship, debt elimination, money management, wealth management, personal finance, created a system, applied it to my personal finances. 3 years later, totally debt-free. Shortly after that, money in the bank. In my 30s, I became financially independent. Then I became a millionaire. And I'm still on the journey. Like, I'm still creating, because wealth is a spectrum. But I always go back to that very first thing that I did, which was, okay, I'm living paycheck to paycheck. Where can I create some kind of positive momentum that I can use to what I call crush my debt, eliminate it as fast as possible while paying the least amount of interest? And that's what I did, and that's what I still do every single month when I have my money dates.
Love that. I think it's refreshing to hear your perspective. We hear it, and people always ask me, well, I want to do something about athletes that go broke, or I want to help athletes that go broke, or I want to help athletes that have money troubles. But no, 90% of the world, or a lot of the world, has money troubles. But it's just refreshing to hear, your journey, your impact, and then your process. I think it's incredible. I want to acknowledge you, the fact that you built systems and that you came out of it. And I think a lot of people are going to learn from that. And it's not just athletes. We're all in this world together, and we all struggle with the same things. I think athletes are just, not on a pedestal, but they're on TV. And everybody's like, well, how did that happen? What do you mean, how did it happen? It happened just like anybody else. It happened with anybody else.
You got cash in your bank account right now? Yeah. Because the answer is no, right? Yeah.
Exactly.
What are some of the things that you've seen commonly take money from people that they don't realize they're giving a lot of their money and their earnings to?
We're constantly bombarded, right, with invitations to spend money all day, every day, whether it's a talking kiosk at the gas station, a sign on a billboard, in our Facebook feed, in our email inbox, our phones are listening to us now. And we know how to train the brain to say yes. It's all psychology at the end of the day. If anyone who's starting a business knows that there's a plan and a strategy and a system that we follow. And advertisers and retailers and anyone selling anything knows this. And so we have to teach ourselves to be an advocate for ourselves and put those racehorse blinders on, the laser beam focus. This is what I did when I was eliminating debt, to like, I want freedom. I want to be free, which means I have to say no to a lot of things that I would not normally say no to. The retirement party for the person you never really met at your work, and they want, $50 to buy them a gift, or the baby shower gift, or your friend's 5-year-old's birthday party, show up and bring, it's like a housewarming gift. Every time I used to go to a party for a friend, which was a housewarming, I'd show up with a gift and a bottle of wine. Well, that's $50. Easy. And, and I used to go to a lot of parties.
And depending on how close a friend is, you might even go for a bottle of liquor or something like that. Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah.
So it's about learning to say yes to ourselves. And the way that we do that, wealth building is 20% strategy, and the strategy is really important, but it's 80% mindset. And I think that that's the reason my book, Simple Wealth, has been so successful, is because it's not just the strategy, it's the personal practices that transform you into a wealthy person. And that all is mindset and how we take care of ourselves and having boundaries and having a goal.
I just want to definitely double click on that even more, going back to the athlete piece of things, is that there are some good financial education that we get as athletes, that the NFL has provided, that you have certain financial advisors. But I'm also hearing you talk about mindset and emotion, which are the things that I bring up the most when it comes to why athletes go broke, or even people outside of sports. It's more of an emotional control. It's like, well, I'm sitting next to you. We're both in the 1%. Even though you're making $10 million and I'm making $425, we're the same age. We want to do the same things. So you don't even think about it. It's more of an emotional thing. Like, well, I worked this hard to get to this level. I'm going to go have some fun. And I think that's incredible that you talk about, yes, 20% strategy and the rest is mindset and emotional control. Just like going out there, all football plays are the same. All the plays are the same. They look the exact same. Are you better? Or you're not? Do you have the ability? Or do you have the mindset to go out there and play in front of 80,000? So I just want to acknowledge that.
Oh, well, thank you for saying that. I feel that deeply. And, I'm on my own transformational journey. And I feel like I've been in a portal myself in the past couple of years where, I set all these goals for myself and I reached them through, the mindset work and showing up every day for myself and just getting into personal practice. And then it was just dark for me, because without a goal, I'm very comfortable with rules and goals.
Yeah.
But now I know that I'm creating my life in alignment with my unique goals and values, and there is no one else out there like me. And so it truly is up to me to create that vision of where it is that I want to go and what I want to do. It hasn't been done before. And so now I'm going back again, like everything is a spectrum and everything sort of makes this spiral where we just come back to the same thing. And I'm really working on my mindset right now. Like I'm listening to Self-Talk Plus, Shad Helmsetter's like reprogramming those beliefs that I've become aware that I had, and just ignoring my ego that I think I was so disillusioned at a certain point after, I reached the goals and stuff. And maybe, after you go through the draft and you get picked or you win a Super Bowl, you feel like I'm on top of the world. Like
right.
what's next from here? And knowing what's next is really important for me. And I'm creating that right now. But what I've realized is that what's even more important than, what I have in my life is, who am I right now? Who am I being? How am I showing up? Because that's what's going to attract back into my life all those things that I want to do and have.
You said yes to yourself and you said no to other things. What was it like to go through the FOMO period of like fear of missing out, or am I showing up the right way, or I'm going to the party but I didn't bring anything? How did you get over that piece of like, am I going to miss out on things? Am I not going to have friends? Am I not going to have opportunities?
Number one was accepting this is going to be hard. And just not lying to myself. Like, if I want to change, I have to change.
Yeah.
Simple as that. And I created a ton of spending rules in my life. Like in my program, I have a whole module on spending rules, and and that really helped.
Right.
But I think just getting really clear with knowing that what is on the other side of what was uncomfortable was everything that I wanted, and just holding on to that.
When you say you launched your business, what were some of the most effective things that helped you build your client base? I know you said word of mouth was big, but were you putting out blogs? Were you spending money on marketing? I mean, how did you take this knowledge of financial security and goals and then apply that to executing a business strategy?
Yes. Well, first thing is I hired a business coach. And, I just think there's so much value in coaching. Like, why try to figure it out alone? Like, why not find someone who's been there and done that and is 100 times ahead of me? Like, I'd love to be at the $100 million in revenue a year mark. Like, that could be a goal for me. So I'd hire a coach to help me get there. But one of the things that he taught me was to really sort of own how much knowledge I had, practical knowledge and learn knowledge, and write about it. So I immediately started writing articles, and then they got picked up by Forbes and Business Insider. And so that created some credibility. And then people were like, oh, Holly has something important to say. She's been published. And then I got on stage. My very first speaking event was in front of 2,500 people from all over the world.
The first one?
Yes.
Threw you right in there.
Yeah.
I mean, I practiced for that. And, that was sort of like my coming out. That was when I launched Financial Impact. And I'll never forget the feeling I had when I walked off that stage. I was like, this is what I want to do for the rest of my life. I haven't even developed that business. Like, that is the transformation that I feel like I'm on, is to build out the Holly Morphew brand. I've just been so focused on nurturing my financial impact community and creating a ton of like free resources for people, and just really creating a business that eventually I can maybe partner with someone who wants to take it over in that way, or I can show up in a different way. I'm starting to do a lot more one-to-many approach instead of the one-to-one is what I love to do. I feel like that's where I'm the most powerful and can make the biggest impact in people's lives. But I know that I can do that in the one-to-many approach as well. But yes, speaking is what is next for me.
Okay. And then I'd love to just touch on, you said 11 streams of income. How do you balance all that? I know people are thinking, well, how are you in all those places at one time? Obviously, You're not. You have it scaled and you have it done the right way. Can you touch on some of those businesses and how you've created that?
Sure, I'd be happy to. And a lot of people ask me about residual income because I am so passionate about creating it. And I do want to preface this with saying that residual income is the fourth and last pillar of wealth that we create, because along the way, we're creating security for ourselves. And there's a lot of value in security and cash flow. We're also creating cash flow, right?
And health, right? Your health benefits from being financially secure, all these things.
Yes, it matters. I actually, I have a neighbor in my building who is an architect and built a very successful architecture firm. And early when his company was starting, the financial advisor who was overseeing the company benefits recommended a long-term disability policy. He was like, you're 7 times more likely to get sick than you are to die. And he got that policy from one of the good companies like Mass or Northwestern Mutual. And he has Parkinson's now. And the reason that he's able to live such a great life is because he got that policy. And that's part of wealth. Protecting your money is a really important piece of it. So to go back to the residual income streams that I've created, most of them are residual, which means they're mostly hands-off. But I own property. I'm a real estate investor. I do some affiliate marketing. I did a stint with Arbonne, which is an MLM, for a long time. I still get paid today for work that I did back then. I own some mineral rights.
Ooh.
Yeah. So I do all kinds of things, but simplicity is also a core value of mine, because I really want to live my life. I really want to spend time in community with people who inspire me. I love to be inspired and stimulated. So learning new things and getting around people who are also, on that path is really important to me. So I actually try not to work more than, 35 hours a week if I can help it.
Hey,
Love that.
make it. Sounds like you can help it.
Yeah.
You said mineral rights. How does one go about acquiring mineral rights? Just tell the people.
You get very lucky. So, for those of you who are listening and they're like, what are mineral rights? So generally when we buy real estate, we just buy what's above the ground. And that's normal and common. But every once in a while, you might come across a property that has the mineral rights attached to it, which is everything that's below the ground. And I happened to buy a property in the 2000s that, the property was... I'm trying to think of a nice way to say this. Let's just say it needed a lot of work.
C-class property? C-class property?
That works, yeah. But it came with the mineral rights. And the property was actually a loser for a few years, but I just knew that it had a lot of potential. And then back in, 2018 or 2019, I was out, I call it the farm because it's 5 acres. And I have this big dream building a retreat center on it one day and having animals in the gardens. That's like my big driver for why I do.
Goat yoga.
Yes, goat yoga. That'll be a part of it. Yeah. And one of my neighbors said, have you gotten your check yet? I was like, what? What check? So then I just went online and, found out who's taken resources from my land, and they sent me a check.
Woo.
Wow.
Yeah.
Shout out to that neighbor.
Yeah.
Shout out to that neighbor. Community. Rising tide lifts all.
Yes.
Rising tide lifts all
brother.
boats.
Yes.
Well, thank you so much for joining us. You got any more, Bennie, you want to hit?
No, I think this is incredible. I think the knowledge that you just gave us and that you're giving the listeners, just want to acknowledge that, acknowledge the fact that how incredible your journey is and how important that other people can see the mindset and emotional impact that money has. It's not just, yes, you need to have the knowledge, but it's also the emotional control, the mindset to want to do better, the vision, and then also the fact that you are very rooted in your core values. Like, that's just awesome to hear and see. So just want to thank you for coming on.
Oh, thank you so much. It's really been a pleasure.
It's been a pleasure to have you. She is Holly Morphew, the financial coach who helps entrepreneurs and professionals create personal wealth and financial independence. She's a best-selling author. Find her book on Amazon.com and check her out on her website, financialimpact.com. Thanks so much, Holly.